Buying a house is one of the largest financial investments anybody makes, so it's very important to get it right. So what are the first steps? The golden rule of buying a property is that you do not buy a property just because you like it. You buy a property that you can sell easily and over time you'll make a good profit on. To do that, you need to think about location and access. Families like to be near train and bus stations, schools and nurseries. Couples like to be close to cafes, restaurants and gyms. Retired couples like to be close to social venues and clubs. If you buy a house with these qualities, the resale value should stay high because there will always be people who want to buy it. Then there's the number of bedrooms. Single adults like one bedrooms with large living rooms, so the rent is low and they can invite friends around. Young couples planning a family like 2 or 3 bedrooms. Single or divorced adults like one bedroom with 1 or 2 spare rooms for visitors or as studio. Retired couples like to downsize but have 1 or 2 extra rooms as studio or bedroom for visitors or family. Is it better to buy an old house or a new house or apartment? New properties are more popular, so they can be more expensive. Older properties can be cheaper but may need renovation. Some people like to buy an old property and do some of the renovation themselves. This can save money and add to the value of the property. In many countries, some renovation costs are tax deductible. It's good to keep all receipts to be able to prove what you've spent. Always keep a summary for the future. New properties need little maintenance. Owners of older properties may need to pay the cost of repairing, replacing the roof, replacing windows, renovating the surface of the building or the garage. When you start your search, you can look at both new and old properties and decide later. You need to calculate the immediate and future costs before buying. Price per square meter. House prices are usually compared against one another based on price per square meter or price per square foot. This varies between different areas depending on the popularity of the area with buyers. PPM usually refers to habitable space. Find out how the surface area is measured in your country by asking a real estate agent or using the internet. PPM of properties around the world can vary a lot. Get an idea. Visit a local real estate agent and look at the window. Divide some house prices by the number of square meters stated. You can also do this on a local property search website. Where you live, the definition of price per square meter is likely to be consistent, but eventually you will need to check what it precisely means. What does it include? Does it include corridors? Does it include bathrooms? Does it include kitchens or not? Most properties and different areas are compared on the basis of PPM, so it's an important metric. Always check it. Parking space. Having outdoor parking space is a minimum, but having a garage adds extra security and should reduce your car insurance premium. Even if you do not drive, it's best to always buy a house with parking. Think of it as an investment and not just a place to live. EV charging. If you buy an apartment in a block with several apartments, to install a new EV charging facility, you may need higher voltage electricity which may or may not be available, and the permission of the majority of other owners and an internet connection. If you buy your own house, you can always install an EV charger. When you find the property you would like to buy, you have to go and see it. This is called a viewing. When you view a property, there are many things to check that include the following list. But this is not a complete list, so check for other things too. How could a burglar get in? Are the doors and windows secure? If there are busy roads or school playgrounds nearby, is the noise acceptable? Are there any churches nearby? Some people do not like loud church bells, but to hear the church bells ring, you need to be at the property, ideally on the hour. If not on the ground floor, is there a lift for deliveries? How would you get a large sofa into the property? Is there a basement, cellar, or bike room? Are there any signs of damage or damp on the walls or floors? Are the windows double glazed for sound and for heat and cold? Is the property overlooked by other houses? Are kitchen cabinets and work surfaces in good condition? Do taps, sinks, and showers all work well? Now we come to the second step. Once you've picked a house or apartment, the next steps are speaking with a few banks or mortgage brokers about getting a mortgage, shortlisting some banks and requesting pre-approval for a mortgage, and checking the annual running costs of the house. Banks will ask for detailed information on your salary, savings, monthly expenditure, and the running costs of the house. They will also look up your credit score without you knowing. Banks need to know how much you want to invest up front. This is usually called a deposit. The higher the deposit, the lower the amount that a bank needs to lend you, and the lower the interest you need to pay the bank. It may sound like a good idea to start with the highest deposit you can afford, but it's best not to use all your savings. It's always good to save some cash in case of unexpected costs like losing your job. A mortgage has several pieces. First is the deposit, that's the money you invest. Then there's the mortgage, this is the money the bank lends you. And then there's the interest rate. This could be a fixed rate or a floating rate. A fixed rate interest means that you pay the same interest until maturity, say every quarter. With a floating interest rate, the interest you pay follows the market interest rates, which change. So it's floating, it's changing all the time. Interest is quoted as an annual rate, but is paid monthly or quarterly. Then there's amortization. If you have amortization in your mortgage, it means that you will be repaying some of the mortgage together with interest payments or at certain agreed dates. Interest plus principal or interest-only mortgage. With some mortgages, you pay back a fraction of the mortgage at the same time as making interest payments. With other mortgages, you may only need to pay interest. Which style of mortgage suits you depends on the country you live in. Then there's maturity. This is the date by which the mortgage must be fully repaid or renewed. In a mortgage, the buyer pays a deposit and borrows the rest from the bank. This is called a mortgage. An important parameter for a mortgage is what's called the loan to value or LTV. It's calculated by dividing the mortgage amount by the total price of the property. It's usually a percentage number. For example, if a house costs 500,000 and the deposit paid is 100,000, the LTV is 80%. That's 400,000 divided by 500,000. Many people buy houses with an LTV of around 60% or even less. However, there are others who have lower savings, so they may use an LTV of 80%, which is quite high. Remember that the lower the LTV, the smaller the mortgage, and the smaller your debt and what you have to pay every month or quarter. It's best to pick the LTV that allows you to keep some cash for emergencies and at the same time be able to pay back the mortgage comfortably. So let's talk about fixed rate mortgages. With a fixed rate mortgage, the interest rate charged on the mortgage is unchanged until maturity. Therefore, your monthly or quarterly interest payments stay the same all the time. For example, if you have a mortgage of 1 million at 4% fixed interest rate, you would be paying 40,000 interest per year. That is 1 million times 4 divided by 100. If the bank expects you to pay interest every quarter, you would be paying approximately 10,000, that's 40,000 divided by 4, in interest every quarter. When a bank quotes a rate on a mortgage, its profit is included in that rate, and it assumes you will keep the mortgage until maturity. If you unexpectedly decide to repay your mortgage early, there may be penalties unless you've negotiated a mortgage that allows you to do that. Every feature of the mortgage affects its cost, so you need to construct your scenarios and compare prices before you make your final decision. What are floating rate mortgages? With a floating rate mortgage, the interest rate charged changes every month or quarter depending on the market interest rates. In all countries, interest payable on a floating rate mortgage is calculated using a reference rate. Reference rates are calculated differently in each country. You would need to ask your bank what reference rate they use and how you can view it yourself on the web. Nowadays, in the UK, US, EU, Switzerland and Japan, reference rates are calculated over the last few days before the end of the payment period, which is typically 3 months. In some countries, this interest rate is calculated at the start of each period. China uses the loan prime rate, or LPR, Australia uses the bank bill swap rate, BBSW, and South Africa uses the prime rate. All these rates are linked to the rate at which large banks in the country lend to one another. The interest rate offered by a bank on a fixed or floating mortgage includes the profit of the bank. This is called the margin or the spread and is a percentage number. With a fixed rate mortgage, it's usually not possible to see the margin of the bank. You're offered a fixed rate interest rate and that's it. With a floating rate mortgage, the margin is normally stated. You're offered the market interest rate plus a spread of say 0.7%. That spread, whether it's 0.5%, 0.7% or something else, is pure profit for the bank. When negotiating a floating rate mortgage with a bank, discussion is usually around the spread, whilst with a fixed rate mortgage, it's the fixed rate that needs to be negotiated. This should not affect your decision making. Many people take out a fixed rate mortgage when interest rates are low because they hope to lock the interest rates at a low level and expect that the interest rates may rise. People take out a floating rate mortgage often when interest rates are high because they expect that interest rates will fall and their payments can go down. Let's summarize. A mortgage is one of your largest financial commitments. The first step is finding the property. The second step is financing it by getting a mortgage. To make the right decision, speak to your bank and financial advisor and do research, lots of it. At some point, you will need to make a decision and live with it. Consult many people, especially people who have mortgages or just renewed a mortgage. Choosing the right deposit, maturity, interest rate, amortization are all important. Remember that early payment of part or all of your mortgage can be a good way of using excess cash you've saved. It's helpful if your mortgage allows this to happen without penalty or additional costs. Enjoy your new home.